Hello, I'm Marcus from senhasegura. I'm the CEO, and I'm here today with great Marc Goodman, a great expert in cybersecurity. I'm very happy to have here today with us, and we'll have a talk a little bit about cybercrime and the future opportunities we're gonna face the future, and let's talk a little bit about his book, Cybercrime, Future Cybercrimes, right?
Future
Good.
crimes.
Future crimes. Good. Mark, it's good to have you here.
Thank
you
you.
for coming to Brazil.
My pleasure.
Be here with us today, and I'm gonna have a few questions here.
Sure.
Okay. And well, we wired the world, but we failed to secure it. Do you still feel that way? That is technology turning against us?
Well, I think you're exactly right. We've been very good about connecting everything to the internet, but we've been really bad about securing it. And so we had all the old systems that were insecure, and now with the Internet of Things, according to Cisco, we're going to add 50 billion new devices to the internet in the next few years, and I think most of them will be insecure. There was another study by HP Security that said 70% of IoT devices had a security flaw in it. And on average, each one had 26 different flaws that could be exploited for hacking. So the opportunity to hack is very strong and getting stronger.
So I should be worried?
You should be educated. You can choose to worry or not, but you should be educated, because you can either be like an ostrich and put your head in the sand and ignore the threat, or you can understand what's coming and learn to protect yourself, your family, and your business.
You have said that the people who code have the power. Who do we balance that? How do we balance that?
Right. So this is a very new era in our time. It's a new episode of history, because in the past, it was the people that had the money, it was the people who had the guns, the people who had the warships, right? That's the way the world was controlled. And that's still true, of course, but there's a new way now to control the world, and that is through computer code. If I have computer code, I can get into your bank account. I can steal all your information. I can steal your intellectual property. I can do a denial of service attack and attack your e-commerce site. I can deny your bank access to the internet. I can get lists of all of your customers. And of course, I can even attack critical infrastructure. So you can hack cars, you can hack pacemakers, you can hack airplanes, you can hack electricity grids, bridges, dams, and the like. So I said in my book, Future Crimes, that we have never built a computer system that could not be hacked. So everything is hackable, and the people that control the code have all the power.
In this way, do you think I should tell my daughter that she should learn English, French, and also coding?
I think coding, then Portuguese, then English, then French.
Okay, good. That's great. Okay. What are the top 3 security subjects for companies to be concerned about next year?
For me, in thinking about the future of the cyber threat and how most companies react, it comes down to focusing on people. Almost all large companies are very good about buying technology. I'm going to buy a firewall, I'm going to buy antivirus, I'm going to buy an intrusion detection system, I'm going to buy all of these technological tools, but most companies fail to focus on people. A study by IBM Security that came out a few years ago studied hundreds of thousands of data breaches. And what they discovered is that 95% of the time, all data breaches could be traced back to human error. 95% of the time. So what does that mean? That means that a user clicked on a link and brought in ransomware or malware to the company. It means that the company misconfigured their firewall. It means that the company didn't patch and update the software. We talk about all these new and emerging threats, and they're definitely real and coming, but most companies don't even do the basics. You have to start with the basics of security, which starts with people. Training them in a way that they can understand. Most of the training out there today is what I call cyber punishment. In other words, if you start to work at a big company or a big bank, they say to you, they give you a paper to sign, and they say, if you click on a bad link, we're going to fire you. If you share customer information, we're going to fire you. If you do anything bad on the internet, we're going to fire you. That punishment technique does not work. Rather than cyber punishment, I think we need cyber empowerment. We need to teach people in a way that humanizes the problem in a way that they can understand it. And why is that? Because every single one of your employees also has cybersecurity concerns. If somebody works for Coca-Cola, driving the truck, delivering Coca-Cola, it's very hard for them to think about cybersecurity of the company because they think that's somebody else's job. But that same driver for Coca-Cola has a daughter, has a son, has a spouse, has parents, and they care about all of those. So start with teaching your employees to protect themselves, and they'll learn the skills to help protect you. So I think human factors are really important, and that's what I would focus on next year.
Yes, that brings a thought that you don't have a security department, that all the people, the personnel in the company is part of security. So you need to train them to guarantee that each one has the key of one door in the company.
Right.
So,
as I always say, cybersecurity is not a department, it's an attitude. If you have 10,000 people working for your company and only 50 are working on cybersecurity, your strategy is going to fail. You need to get everybody in the company thinking about it.
okay, also we have the IoT problem. You have just mentioned that IoT, and maybe should we calling it the Internet of Things or Internet of Things? I don't know.
I call it the Internet of Things to be hacked.
Okay, good. So we have a great opportunity. You just told me 50 billion devices into 20. But how do you get to secure the design process, especially for Industry 4.0?
Right. Well, that's the key, right? The challenge is it's very hard to secure these devices once they've been deployed. So if we take 50 billion cameras, digital video recorders, televisions, Game Boys, Xboxes, thermostats, all of that, and we put that online, it's already too late. So as you say, the time to go ahead and fix them is now when they're being built and designed. Most of these devices have very, very small processing power and very small memory. And on many of them, you can't upgrade the firmware. So even if you detect that there's a security vulnerability, you can't fix it remotely. You have to go in and change the device or throw it away. So we have to design in security. Today, the way security works, it's an afterthought. Somebody says, I'm going to build something cool and interesting, and I'm going to sell it and make a lot of money. But they forget about security, so it only comes at the end. Security needs to be engineered into all of the products that will make up the Internet of Things up front. And that we can ask companies to do that. Consumers can reward good behavior by buying secure devices. We can create regulations and laws that force companies to do it, and if they don't, we can allow lawsuits for liabilities. So if you get hurt by an IoT device that causes damage, you can sue somebody. In fact, the state of California, just in the past year, created a law that says you can use product liability to sue IoT manufacturers if they mishandle your data.
Great. I see a lot of pressure for innovation. We are seeing change in the markets, so the companies are forced to innovate faster and faster. That brings me a question that how we can deal with the speed of the innovation needs and security, because security requires you to take time to think about, and the CEO would think at a time, and we need to launch a new product to be competitive, to be first in the market. So I think these things doesn't match, How do you see this pressure for innovation? Does security will really have a space against innovation pressure?
The way I see it, absolutely. The way that you describe it is what I call the old paradigm, the old system. Everybody who works in a large company, they think that it's the role of the security office to say no. Can we do this? No. Can we do this? No. We want to do this? No. They think security just says no. If you're a chief security officer who only says no, then you're not helping your company. You're hurting your company. The trick is for the CISO to learn how to say yes in a creative way. We need the most creative minds in security. I personally do not believe that security should slow down innovation. I think security should be a core element of innovation. Bring in the security people at the very first meeting so you can work with them on your brand new product and engineer in security. And I think security tends to draw a typical type of coder or hacker or something like that. Some of them are very creative, some of them are less so. I think we need to invite very creative people. I always talk about Steve Jobs and Johnny Ive. Very, very creative people, but I say, where's the Steve Jobs of security? There is no Steve Jobs in cybersecurity, so I think there's still room for that very creative person to make a big difference.
Brazil is one of the countries where companies most face digital risks. We are the first place when it comes to phishing, but also fake profiles on social media, payment frauds and other scams. In your opinion, what other countries have the same characteristics?
Well, Brazil is a great example of a lot of cybercrime. In addition to everything else that you just mentioned, a study came out recently that said Brazil is almost top in ransomware. So if you look at the global amount of ransomware, the United States has 11% of the world's ransomware, and Brazil has 10.6%. So very close, and Brazil is closing the gap and increasing how much ransomware they have. So I agree with the premise of your question. I think in a lot of countries, particularly in countries that are continuing the road towards development, there's a lot of pressure. Why? Because a lot of the software that exists is pirated. It's not legitimate software. People are using software that's not secure. They're using software that's old. They're using software that's pirated. And right there, that creates a big problem because all of that software is riddled with malware. So it's very easy to break into the systems. Most countries in the developing world have almost no laws against cybercrime, which is a problem because if there's no law, then the police can't act. Even if there is a law, many countries don't have the right training for the police. So the police don't have the right forensics tools, they don't have the right engineers and computer specialists to go ahead and investigate these cases. And so if you don't have the law, you have software that's highly pirated, and then you don't have a competent police force, and you have a public that really doesn't understand the risk. That's the perfect recipe for a cybercrime nightmare.
It's known that the digital world, we always leave traces, and being 100% safe is almost impossible. On the other hand, the cyber criminals are becoming more sophisticated and always seems to be a step ahead. What do you recommend for companies to minimize the risks of online crimes?
Well, I would say what I said earlier, which is start with the basics. Start with the basics, return to the basics, and I'll give you an example from people's personal lives. You should be using a password manager, you should be using a VPN, you should not be running your computer as administrator, you should turn it off when you're not using it. All of these things make for good cyber hygiene, right? And all those things should also be employed in any business, right? So your business needs to have good cyber hygiene. So I would focus on the people. The threats are going to come, but one of the biggest mistakes that both individuals and companies make is to think that there's nothing that they can do against cybercrime. Oh, the hackers are coming from Brazil or the United States or Russia or China, and they're too sophisticated. We can't do anything against them. It's absolutely not true. Small steps can make a big difference. Of course, there's no such thing as 100% secure. If you think about a bank can have a tall fence, they can have cameras, they can have guards with guns, they can have a vault, but if 10 men come in with guns and explosives, they can still get into the bank. So every security measure can eventually be defeated. But what you want to do is discourage the majority of them. There was research done both by the SANS Institute as well as the Ministry of Defense in Australia. And they said if you took 8 steps, including some of the ones that I just mentioned, you can reduce your cyber risk by 85%. So small steps will make a drastic difference in your cybersecurity.
Right, the last one. Right. A huge part of cybersecurity budgets goes to firewalls protections. Even though a growing number of attacks are happening outside the wall, targeting the users of consolidated brands. How American companies are getting prepared for the risk outside the wall when the attacker targets the end user?
Well, that goes back to focusing on the human being, right? You need to focus on those people. Antivirus, many people have said it, including Mikko Huppinen. He was the founder of F-Secure, a big virus company. They've all said the antivirus era is over. We lost that battle, right? If you look at any new virus, malware, threat, any of the software products out there only have about a 5% detection rate, according to some studies that have been done. So for new threats, antivirus is only catching 5% of them anyway. So obviously at the corporate level, you need to have that at some level. You need to study behavioral patterns. You need to see how things are reacting on your network. You can scan documents before they can come in. You can open them up in virtualized environments, as you can with links as well. But ultimately, I believe it comes down to training that end user in a positive way, not by punishing them, but by educating them and by rewarding good behavior. And I think you'll see change.
Okay. One last question.
That was the last question.
Yes, just one more, right? Yes. What you see, managing passwords is really difficult for the normal human being, right?
Yes.
What's the future of the password?
Well, they've done studies that show in the United States and Europe, the average individual has something like 110 or 130 online accounts. You've got one for your bank, you've got one for your child's school, you've got one for your insurance, for your workplace, hundreds and hundreds of accounts for all your social media and the like. So it's humanly impossible to memorize all of these passwords. So instead, people use the same password that's easy to remember and easy to break for all of their sites. So, for example, when 3 billion accounts get hacked at Yahoo, the criminals take all of that data and they use your logon and your password, and they try it at big banks, they try it at big companies, they'll try it on Amazon, they'll try it on social media, and because 60 or 70% use the same password across multiple sites, it works perfectly. So in today's world, I recommend that people use password managers. You can use them in your personal life, a password wallet or digital password manager, or even on the corporate level. There are enterprise versions of these, and I think they're very helpful. As to the future, we're going to probably see passwords go away. And what will replace them initially are biometrics. So if you look at your Apple phone or your Android phone, you can use your fingerprint to log in, or you can use your face to log in. But even those can be defeated. We just had a big hacker conference in Las Vegas called DEF CON, and a bunch of researchers took a photograph of a person, printed it out on color paper, and then they put sunglasses on the paper's eyes, and using a piece of paper with sunglasses, they were able to unlock an Apple phone using its face detection feature. So there are going to be hacks around that. So biometrics are hackable as well, because all of that data is stored in a computer system that is hackable. What we're driving towards is behavioral. So we all behave differently in many ways. So for example, our voice is different, how we type on the keyboard, there's something called keystroke dynamics. Some banks are not just looking at your password, but they're looking at how you specifically type it, how quickly you go from the letter A to the letter B, how hard you hit the keyboard. All of that can be measured and manipulated to see if it's actually you that's typing the password. So ultimately, we'll have a combination of multi-factors for people to log in.
Okay, great. Really good to have you here.
Thank you.
Thank
The
you
pleasure's
for
mine.
this presentation. Good to see you.
Okay, you
Bye-bye.
too. Thank you.